Welcome to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are available in podcast form. Pick them up at ArtistFirst.com. Send your questions and comments into dj@artistfirst.com. Here they are, your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Z-Man, and welcome to nap time. Because we're tired. It's a high energy show though tonight. We're going to wake ourselves up. But I think it's that spring fever.
It definitely feels like spring today.
Right, or all the drugs. But it's not all the drugs. Or the spring fever. What it is, tonight's topic I think is what's doing it to us. Because tonight we are going to discuss how people are like pots. And that's not that people like pot. That's a whole different thing that we're not going to talk about. But people are like pots.
Earthen vessels.
Yeah, they're earthy.
Yes.
And they've got those big round bellies. Well, I mean, in fact, people are like pots in one specific way, and very soon we're going to put up on the website if it's not there already. A very beautiful example of how people and pots can be compared. There's a Japanese technique called, I'm going to mispronounce it now because I pronounced it 17 times, Kuru Sogi. No. Could you go for that? Kutsu Yogi.
Just.
I swear 10 seconds ago I had it. Anyway, there's this Japanese technique.
Kinsukure.
Kinsukure. See that? Margaret's always here to rescue us. Which is a beautiful it's a beautiful way of taking something broken, in this case a piece of porcelain or pottery, and repairing it. And then what they do to repair it, and you probably have seen pictures of this, and we're going to put one up on the website, is they use precious metal, and oftentimes gold, to fuse the shards of this item, this pot, back together, and in essence make it even more beautiful. So it flies in the face of a couple of things. You know, in our current modern day culture, when something breaks, you know, we curse a little, and then you throw it out. You say, "Oh, GD, drop the damn thing," and you clean up all the shards, and you put your shoes on, and you mutter under your breath, and you throw it out, and you get another one. But in this particular culture, the beauty of a piece of pottery is more precious in some ways than its replacement. Yes, you could probably get another equally functional piece of pottery. But when you're talking about something which is perhaps a piece of porcelain which has been in the family, it may not be so incredibly precious, but it's been with your family maybe for many years. Maybe it was acquired even a generation ago. Yet, through use, because these items are used on a regular basis, it becomes broken. And rather than dispose of it, and in essence replace it, reforms the device, reforms the pottery, and takes each of its shards and limbs them, coats them, fuses them together with gold or with silver, and the resulting shard, it's now functional, but it's not the same, and in some ways it's more beautiful. And that's what our argument is, our topic tonight, is that we are like pots. We go through our lives being used. We become broken. Yet we don't dispose of that brokenness. We don't throw it to a corner, or we shouldn't throw it to a corner and hide it and never see it again. You have to celebrate it.
Well, the society we're living in right now is disposable. Something like that, this concept doesn't necessarily make sense because, well, if that which you used you can't use anymore, why don't you just get another one?
Right.
And it's a different mindset, understanding that what it is that has been formed, because the modern mindset believes that everything must have been cookie cutter, just mass produced, cheap, and just get another one.
They're all identical.
Mm-hmm. But in this instance, it's all hand-formed and unique because it is hand-formed. And there was a lot of care and technique, and fingerprints maybe on the bowl. Fingerprints of the maker maybe on the bowl. Or the glazing was distinct, or the artists themselves had a certain technique in producing it, and that person is the only one who does it that way. You know, it's honoring the uniqueness of it, but this mindset has taken it even a step further, that even though it has become shattered, it is reformed, but reformed through molten metal, using molten gold in this case. And it's again understanding that what they're actually doing is honoring the efforts that have been put into this moment, this piece, and continuing to find a way to honor the efforts that have been put into it. People may have passed, perhaps, or the reason why it was purchased or made that way it also has passed, but it's building on that, understanding that this life, it has to do with building on your moment.
And I want to go back to what you just said, because it's beautiful. The disposable nature of mass-produced items, even items of great beauty. You know, you can see examples of these bowls, and you could probably find a very similar, maybe even a more pretty version of the bowl that has been made in 10,000 unit quantities. You know, and just formed by a machine. But the analogy of a thing which is just for utility, and where its utility outweighs its beauty. In other words, you say, well, it's beautiful, but if it's broken, why waste any more time on it? You know, why put any more effort into it? In fact, it's not only just the disposable society, but it's like, let's get a new one. New is better. New is always better. And you know, they're not wrong. New is better. A new car is better than an old car. A new bowl may have who knows what certain advantages from the old bowl, but yet newness and utility have their place. But they fly in the face of something which has connection to its maker, which has a uniqueness to it, which has a history. Something which is new is also something which is basically without history. You don't know actually if it's any good. You're assuming it's good because it's new. But how many times have we bought something that's new and it's junk, and then you throw that out and get another new thing? It's that way with I liken this to relationships, and although people are certainly unique, I think a relationship is between you and this pot. It's a relationship of use and of function and of time, and perhaps memories. But a relationship among people is very similar. You start with a new relationship, and everything is wonderful, and you're discovering each other and so on. But then that relationship matures, and it goes through what everyone goes through: stresses, trials, life, and and pieces of that relationship get shattered, or there are stressors on that relationship which put cracks or put damage on both the people who are involved in it and the relationship itself. It changes over time. It's not always smooth sailing now, is it? And we all know that. But it is the mending of the pot which makes it more beautiful. And I think it's analogous to the way a relationship is broken and then mends and grows stronger. I mean, that, in fact, the pot that's been mended with molten gold is more beautiful, but it's even stronger than it was before. It's no longer just porcelain. It's an amalgam.
Right. I guess you can look at it in terms of almost a metal outer shell that's filled with pieces of the porcelain. It is amazing, actually, because what that piece of porcelain has done is it actually has a touch of the soul of the creator, even to start with. Piece of creation that is usable and appreciated for the fact that it can be there and utilized for whatever, whether it's serving food during a meal, or perhaps serving tea, or for whatever purpose, but it's there when people are there. It's an experience, and that's part of the things that are used for the experience of a meal, or the experience of a sharing.
Mm-hmm.
So that, in and of itself, since we are creatures of habit, we tend to embrace. We like to do our own rituals.
Mm-hmm.
It's something we as humans participate in, and we do it. Things that we do every year,
mm-hmm.
or things that we do to celebrate a birthday,
Mm-hmm.
or to celebrate Christmas, or whatever holiday
occasions. Yeah.
But you have to bring in this particular object.
Right.
Whether it's okay, we've got to use the special stand for the Christmas tree, or we have to we have to put up the creche, or we have to bring, this is our family's menorah, or we're going to use this, for purification. We burn the sage in this particular shell. And
right. It acquires value through experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Additional value.
And it's an inanimate object. But at the same time, it has acquired the patternings of soul.
That's a very good way of putting it. It's imbued. You mentioned it right away in the beginning that it's imbued with the soul of its maker. As an act of creation. Putting aside the mass-produced, all things which are made have of them some piece of their maker, because you don't make anything of excellence or anything of utility even without putting something of yourself into it.
Mm-hmm.
your time, your energy. Then you're right, it becomes part of a routine, part of an experience, part of many experiences, part of a period of time. The longer you have something, you associate it with, well, oh, this is where I was here when this happened, and we got through it, and these are the things that helped us do it, whatever they are. Our wood stove got us through the great disaster of Sandy or whatever, and you're like, that's a good old wood stove. And even though it gets creaky and cranky, it acquires and it's a subjective relationship. In other words, it's valuable to you and to me and to others who have had an experience with this particular inanimate object. So it is both a relatively valuable thing, and also it's a personally valuable thing, in the sense that it's valuable to those who used it, but it's also got a feedback. It evokes a certain emotion or a certain memory in those who have used it, and found that it provided part of the experience, an important part of the experience. As you mentioned, all those things, whether it's a menorah or it's a platter you bring for turkey at Christmas, at Thanksgiving, or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. A special birthday candle, whatever it is. These things acquire a certain a certain amount of like mana, almost.
There's a word.
There's a word, right? They've acquired a certain amount of energy from you, and they've taken some scars and some hits over the years, and maybe you can see, where this particular chip on this particular appliance was from a particular experience, and you're like, wow, all the years, and you look at it, yep, I remember when that happened, and yet, go ahead.
When you think of it, it acquires a value because of your human experience. Otherwise, it has no value. So when you think of it that way, everything that is in your life is valuable because it shares your life for a period of time.
Yes.
And it has nothing to do with how much it cost you. The cost, what was the cost of this? And most people want to say it's got to be a dollar amount. But you realize at that point that your life is not defined by a dollar amount. But that is the mindset. You slip into this and say, well, how much is this? When you realize that it is the experience and the sharing of the experience with yourself and others, as well as the involvement of the thing, whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
But that is the human experience. And it's valuable only because it's part of the human experience.
Right. And to go back to the beginning of this, where we're talking about the kimosabi, when you do this, when you repair these items, you're honoring not just the utility and not even just the beauty. You're honoring the relationship and the experience over time and over years and over whatever it is. You take this inanimate object and this Marie Kondo thing. You bring something up to your head and you say, "Does this bring me joy? If not, you throw it away." I think that's silly, but in essence, it's talking about the negative portion of what we're talking about. You look at something on the floor and it's fallen and it's broken, and there's a loss there. You see that, you say, "Oh, I liked that, whatever it was. And if it's been with you a very long time, there's a certain loss. There's a damage done in the breaking. And then you say, the disposal of that is a process of almost, hiding that grief, or in many ways denying that grief. If you truly treasured something and it is broken or lost, you have to experience that loss, that breaking of something which was important to you. It's of course much greater with people and with relationships, but that thing has acquired an association, a bit of mana, like we talked about it before, a bit of energy that is important. It's important. So this idea of honoring a broken thing and bringing it back to a different form, which shows that yes, it was broken, but the gold, that metal, is a token. It says this object was important to us, and we always could see the importance, but no one else could. But in its breaking, we have the opportunity to, in essence, show in the scar and in the healing how important it was and how important it will continue to be. And that's why I think it becomes an analogy for relationships. I think that in the stress of a relationship or in the breaking of a relationship, and it doesn't have to be something like a breakup, it can be someone you love dies. Well, that transforms your relationship. It breaks the physical, it breaks the corporeal, but yet it goes on. And the way we honor those relationships is that we reform them with something precious, not gold or silver, but with a different form of honoring that person.
Well, the gold is the symbolic reforming of this piece. And when you realize that what they're doing is they're not just gluing it back together.
Right.
It's just so that it looked like it did before, only with some cracks in it. They are actually reforming it and highlighting the breaks that have been done to this piece. But again, in that reformation, it is reborn into something better than it was.
I like that. You should expand on that. The reborn part of it is very interesting.
Well, it's, again, if you were trying to just go back to what it was, it's, crazy glue and a lot of time.
Well, right. Crazy gluing it back together and making it invisible is sort of like a pretending that it never happened, right?
Right. It's not really an honoring of the broken. It's just, let me see if I can make it look right.
Yeah, and there's something to that. But you go ahead, yeah.
But then someone might say, well, then you can see what it looked like originally. But that's not honoring the fact that through time, stuff happens.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that you are less worthy than you were when you were first formed.
Exactly.
So going through this brokenness and then going back into this fire with molten metal. And I love the fact that it's gold, frankly, because talk about testing your metal.
Yes.
The purification that gold goes through is quite intense. It's the only thing that's left. Once they purify the raw pieces, it is the only thing that's left after a high fire. So to use that as the almost the adhesive, if you would, but the framework, to use that as the framework in which to put the shards back together is just an amazing analogy, and it is an act of honor at that point.
And to go a little bit off the subject, but I think in similar ways, when somebody goes through a trial, let's say a disease or is stricken with an infirmity, heart attack or something like this, there's a trial there. There's a process of let's say cutting or breaking, and then there's a process of healing. And I think many people come through that, and they want to honor their scars. Women who've had breast cancer and have unfortunately had to have surgery, a mastectomy or something of that nature. Oftentimes, you're offered reconstruction. And it's not that you shouldn't, but many women, certainly in the last several years, you hear of people who don't. They say, "No, I don't want that. I want to honor my scars." We have a very good friend who said, "I don't want that. I want the scars show that I went. They're honorable. I went through something. It cost me a lot. It cost me a piece of my body. I don't want to make it like it never happened.
Right.
I want to have a physical reminder. I mentally I know it happened, but I think there's a piece there too. Sometimes people want to go pretend that it never happened, and that's wrong too. It did happen, and I think that's where I'd like to go with this. It happened, and honoring it is the right way to say, yeah, I was broken. I was brought really low, maybe to the point of despair and death, and I went through that valley of the shadow of death, and I came through the other side. I found grace. I found faith. I found healing, but yet there's a scar.
If a person identifies themselves only with the physical form or that earthen vessel, and that earthen vessel is shattered, and you do not receive the fact that there is change, and you only want what you were before, that broken vessel will reflect on your own brokenness and refusal to heal. You have to acknowledge the brokenness in order to heal. You can't just cover it up.
Exactly, and I think this is where I think we should go with this. But let's take a little break, go back to the studio, because we're at that point in the show. We're going to break it apart, but we're going to reform it on the other side and talk more about brokenness.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief, Dev, is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers. Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is Book 1 of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Hi, this is Hannah Ruth from the band Wild Hum. Check out our new Americana Soul CD, Wild Hum, at our website, wildhummusic.com. And you are listening to the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Thank you.
You are listening to The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lynes.
Thank you very much, Steve-Ann. And we are reformed. And there was some radio gold in between that we couldn't broadcast. But in fact, though, I think that we've hit upon something that's very, very interesting. The brokenness of the body, or the brokenness of the spirit, which is harder to see. If I think there is a tendency, and more than a tendency, there's a desire to when one is broken, to return to the previous state as though it had never happened, and I think that is innate, because the grieving process is pain. When something happens, when a piece of you is lost, a piece of you, especially if it's an existential piece, if your life is threatened, or your existence is threatened, or someone you love's existence is threatened, and the realization of it is overwhelming. It's life changing. You want it to go away. You want it. There's a piece of you that says, "I want this to, Father, let this cup pass." But if it cannot, I have to drink from it. I'm messing the quote up. But the point is that the desire to make it as though it had never happened is there. You have to fight your way through that. And on the other side of it is still the trial. You have to fight your way through the trial. You have to be broken. You then have to heal. But once you have gone through that valley, through that shadow, whatever it is, I think that there's an equally powerful desire, and I think it's a correct way of thinking about it, to honor that brokenness. As I said, good friends of ours who have gone through tough times and had to have surgeries and have come through them changed. Their lives have changed, their way of thinking about life has changed, and their bodies have been changed through these health issues. The scars are a visible and a almost proud marker. Proud is the wrong word, but you have the desire to say, yeah, yeah, I went through something, and here's the mark, that you can see on the outside, and it's an analogy of the um, the struggle.
Vision you have of yourself.
Oh yes, yes.
Because if it's a vision, if you envision yourself as forever young,
unchanging
and unchanging, you will be hurt by this existence because you can't stop the aging or the changing that happens on an everyday basis. What is it, every 7 years, is it, that every cell in your body has been replaced?
I've heard that, whether it's exactly 7 years, but yes, there's a reformation of the body constantly. We're always a little bit dying and a little bit healing all the time. It's just normal wear and tear on your body.
And that is the acknowledgement that you are a continual process.
Yeah.
Instead of being a stagnant object, a thing. This is who I am. That's it.
Isn't that a wonderful? I mean, if we could stay there for a second, Madison Avenue and the internet want to tell you that you should be forever young, and you see it on every commercial for beauty products or whatever they are, plastic surgeries and so on. Yet, what that speaks to is the lie that I am unchanging in the physical, and that my identity is tied up in this image of whatever it is, that I would want to be here in the now and never changing, regardless of what happens around me or the years or any of this stuff. And as you said, life will, if that's your desire, life will teach you a different lesson. And I think to the extent that you try to repair everything and make it as though it had not happened, you increasingly live a lie, because the pot is of course broken, but that pot or us can be broken over and over again. In fact, it's constantly being broken.
Well, it's acknowledging the fact that you are more than just what you think you are. Again,
yes.
Going back to that idea that this image that you project, whether it be on social media or any kind of picture, it's understanding that all that is just two-dimensional and instant, so
right.
Stagnant. But that's not who you are. You are in process all the time. And to be able to receive that, to embrace that, to know that it's process, doesn't mean it's good or bad, because it can be good some days, it could be bad some days. It's just the way it is. But to acknowledge the fact that you are in process makes space for the concept of who you are.
I think it does two things, too. It also breaks apart. The who you are is no longer the physical. The who you are is no longer the corporeal. It puts you into the spirit of who you actually are. And then the brokenness, the scars that we honor, the gold that we put on these scars, like you once said to me many years ago, I earned these gray hairs. Every one of them. And I'm not going to hide them. You can do anything you want with your hair. You can color it. You can do it, blah, 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 and people do. And it's just it doesn't matter. But the point is that the wrinkles or the gray hairs or the scars speak of a life lived. They're more than just aging. They're also a sign of having lived and maybe having gone through something, and maybe having, from an outward point of view, showing that you've got some experience under your belt.
Yes. And it is part of what happens to you down here. The process is ongoing. And when you think of it, every 7 years it's a new you, because every cell in your body has been replaced.
Well, how about pregnancy? I mean, when a woman has a child, there are physical changes through the pregnancy, and it's a joyous event. But then you're not the same anymore. You've got whatever it is. I mean, we can all. I'm not going to go into the gory details, but there are changes in your body, and those changes mark you as having had an experience, a joyful, wonderful experience, perhaps, but experience nonetheless. You're no longer a younger person who thinks about how it might be. You know, they've read all the books. You've got the scars and the gray hair or the stretch marks or whatever it is to say, yeah, I don't have to read the book. I can now tell you about my experience, the actual thing.
Yes, and the experience is not something that you can easily communicate. Other people have gone through the same thing, but your response to what you're going through is what makes you unique. And therein is where the patterns of the gold are formed.
I have an analogy I want to bounce off of you. You know, these rites of passage, which I think we don't do enough of in the current modern-day society, but in ancient societies, you'd have rites of passage. Sometimes they were designed to inflict a scar or a physical change. You would cut something off, or you would cause a burn,
bloodletting.
Bloodletting.
Yeah.
And the importance of those things was not just that that everyone was going through. It showed that you had reached a certain pinnacle, that you had been broken and healed and reformed, and that was gold. The scars of of having gone through childbirth are gold, which shows that you healed, you reformed yourself through a trial and through an experience, both painful and joyous. And now you are not what you were before, yet you are more, and perhaps even greater than can be physically seen, but there are the physical clues, markers.
Right. And again, it has to do with understanding that this is a growth process.
Yeah.
And in order to grow, many times you have to let go of what you thought you knew.
Yeah.
Or who you thought you were, or concepts of who you were. And it's all good when you can see yourself in process, as a process, because you're not done yet.
That's another interesting thing you just mentioned. You see yourself. I think that the inanimate doesn't see itself, but that's the analogy. The pot breaks, and we human beings find ourselves in the position of a decision. You know, do we heal this pot? Do we honor it? Do we give it a new life? And in doing so, we affirm the experience that we've had with this inanimate object. And it's an analogy of what we do to ourselves, of what happens to us.
Right. It is the analogy of the fact that you must choose to heal, to be reformed. And unless that's actually done, unless you really choose it, all you have left is broken shards.
Gosh, that's so profound. I mean, it's exactly right. And you know, relating to our own experience, when you're broken, you know, when we went through what we went through with Christopher and we're broken, and we went through a long trial, at each step of the way, we had to choose to help him, and we had to choose to accept the brokenness, and then at the end, after we lost him, we had to choose to heal. And in some ways, the soul of the Everyman is an outgrowth, as many other things are, of that brokenness back then. But yet, it is in the healing that we're able to, that you've been able to help people for many years afterwards, and hopefully we're doing a little bit of that here. It's the when you say yes, because you're given the choice.
Always.
You're given the choice. You have to, whether you know it or not, you're given the choice. Do I want to take the step forward? And it hurts to say, yes, I'll try to be healed. I accept the process of healing. It's almost in some ways more painful than the process of being damaged, because sometimes you're damaged and you didn't accept the damage. The damage just comes.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to say, yes, I would like to be healed.
Right.
And then what you said before is the worst part of it. It's like you'll be healed, but you won't be the same. Is that okay? And you're like, you got to make a choice right there, because you want to be the same, but you're not going to be the same. You're going to be different. You don't even know if you're going to be stronger or weaker, but you're going to be different, and that's scary because it's unknown.
You make the choice in that moment. And it depends on whether or not you are able to say it is part of the process of life down here. And I have to rely on something stronger than myself, my thoughts, my ego, my hopes and dreams that I had before.
Yeah.
That had been shattered, that were part of who I was. Will I accept a healing and then allow myself to hope and dream again?
Yeah. And isn't it, this is, people don't think of this in the same way that I'm going to be saying it, but it is a leap of faith, because healing doesn't guarantee anything. You say, yes, I wish to be healed, but who you will be, to what new condition you will be in the healing is unknown. The only thing that it puts you back towards is that the spirit, the soul which is within me, the spirit from which I came, will continue on. That's the affirmation. I accept that I need healing. I will be healed. And then you said, where I will be, to dream again, to hope again, to live. To live.
To choose to live in the moment that is before you.
Yeah.
And that's a choice that you must make on an everyday basis. Because it's so easy to want to choose not to live, not to affirm life. Everything around you just wants you to affirm the thing. But affirming the thing does not affirm you.
It's so subtle and insidious, because the messaging is always, stay forever young, just to give it a phrase. And yet it is the affirmation of aging and experience and the damage and the healing, which is life, which is why we're here. We've said it many times in the past. We're here to dream the common dream. We're here to have experiences and relationships. We come here to get broken, to get broken and healed over and over again until we are finally allowed to return. The length of our stay is completely unknown. The amount of damage we're going to go through is completely unknown, but you have always the choice. Do I wish to affirm the being that I am, accept the damage and the healing, and the unknown of the being I shall be after going through it?
Well, like it goes also back to understanding the concept that we as humans were made not to be immortal.
Right.
And understanding that means that you accept the fact that change and process will happen to you. But you were made to heal.
Yeah.
You weren't made to be an immortal. So what is like some of the stories of the gods? They're immortal, but they don't always heal.
Right. Right.
But as humans, we've been given the gift of healing, even though our lifespan is much shorter.
Lovely and exactly right. We've been given the gift of healing. We've been given the gift of a short life. What's the gift of a short life? The gift of the short life is to realize that every moment is precious. We have our dreams here of immortality. We have our dreams of unchanging youth. And you say, even as you say, so that would be wonderful. Of course it would be wonderful. But yet it would not be human in the sense that we are human here. Because if you guarantee, say to any human being, if I guarantee to you that you will never die, that you will never age, that every moment you have eternity and beyond, and then no moment is precious anymore. It would become the worst living hell, because in essence, there would be no urgency or precious spice to your existence. The amount of the exhaustion of the physical would weigh so heavily upon you after your first 1,000 years that you might long for non-existence.
Wasn't that written also in, I guess it was Tolkien, where the elves were the ones that lived forever?
Yeah.
And they looked at humanity in wonder, because they went willingly to an end of life, and some of them could not. They were sitting there going, "Oh,
if only."
The eons of time.
Yeah, and what do you do with it all? I mean, you can only braid so many elven hair braids. But we're never moving on. But in truth, life is precious because it's short. Life is worth living because we don't know what's happening next. It's the Forrest Gump. Life is a box of chocolates, and you don't know what you're going to get. But that's exactly it. Why life is precious is because we don't know what the next moment holds. We don't know if we're even going to have the next breath or the next moment. And to the extent that we fool ourselves, we don't live. We don't accept damage. We don't accept the healing.
Well, it sounds like the ultimate 5-year-old tantrum. I don't wanna.
Well,
seriously, there's a part inside that's just saying, no, I don't want to die. I don't want to grow old. I don't wanna.
Yes.
And you sit there and you go, okay, well, what part of me is having a tantrum right now? And why are you having a tantrum? Because that's just not the way things are down here. There is change. It reminds me of when we were driving in the car, and our youngest one, who was in one of those car seats in the back, and it was sunset. We were explaining that the sun is going down, and suddenly you hear this wail in the back, and you're like, oh my gosh, what's the matter? Are you okay? You're thinking, oh, is he sick? What's going on? And his response was, I don't want the sun to go down.
Right. So there's a piece of us, and it's lovely. It was very funny, and it still is. But there's a piece of us, you're right, that wants this. But that piece is immature in that regard. It is a willful, young piece of us, and I think it's the piece that in some ways is grieved when things are damaged and grieved when things are lost. because we love who we are now. We love who we were in the past, and in the breaking of that thing, there is an unknown and there is a loss. And when it happens fast and big things happen, we feel a very large loss. But even the everyday wearing of time and aging, you feel these little losses, and that tiny part of you, which grieves those things, has to be assuaged. You have to give it the next thing. You have to say yes. You have to acknowledge it. Yes, that hurts. I don't want the sun to go down either. But yet there will be, in that case, a new dawn. The sun will come back.
The sun's going to come back.
Yes.
But I don't want it to go down now.
Right. I don't want it to go down now. I'm grieved. I don't want, this trial. I don't want to drink this cup. I don't want to have this surgery. You don't.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to choose to heal. You have to say, I'm going to go through the night and the sun's going to come back, and I'm going to choose that. And then it comes back, and you're a different person. You've grown a day older. You've healed those scars. You've got that experience.
You have to acknowledge the fact that that's what you feel. You can't just sit on it.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, because it's a real response. But not to let the response control you. But the fact that you do have the response must be acknowledged. You can't just throw it under the desk somewhere and pretend that it never existed.
Exactly.
And that is part of the breaking, by the way.
Yes. Of the pot. I mean, it's analogy.
Yes, that is part of the breaking. Understanding that, it's not going to be the way it was. And no, you don't like it. You don't want it. But time moves on. And you have the choice. Do you want to heal or don't you? You want to live the next day or don't you? And to be honest with oneself over that, because the fact that I don't want to is there means that there is a dark spot inside that needs light. And to enlighten that piece of you, to allow it to take a step outside of itself, because within itself it's believing that it's going to be darkness only. Right. But if it takes a step outside of itself, and in great love, then it will be all right.
You have to give it that assurance, and you have to become your own healer in that regard, or your own affirmer.
You have to give permission to yourself for the healing. Yeah. And you may fight the process of healing tooth and nail.
Yeah.
But you will be transformed by it.
And in the end, the gold that mends you, the healing, the scars, make you more precious, not less. Anyway, unfortunately, our precious soul of the everyman has to be broken for a little while, but we'll heal it and we'll be back next week on the other side. And in any case, I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret. And thank you for listening.